Welcome to North Texas Networkers, a show about connecting people across the DFW Metroplex. As realtors, we get the opportunity to meet and work with a variety of interesting people.
And this is our chance to introduce you to them. Join us as we talk with our community influencers, share their inspiring stories, and reveal how and why they shape our local communities.
I'm your host, Caralee Gurney.
And I'm your co-host, Stacy Reevely.
Thank you for joining us. Good morning. Welcome to North Texas Networkers. We are so glad to be here today and so appreciative of our sponsor, Craig Schrank with Willow Bend Mortgage. We always thank him and are grateful for him. I'm Caralee.
And I'm Stacy.
Today we have Kim Gatlin, and welcome. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you.
Kim is Rudy Gatlin's former wife. If you know who Rudy Gatlin is from the Gatlin brothers, I used to listen to some good Gatlin music years ago. She's also an author. She wrote Good Christian Bitches. You may have, I feel so naughty saying that on screen.
I tell people all the time it sounds so different when you say it out loud.
Yeah. So anyway, welcome.
Thank you.
Just tell us a little bit about you and your family.
I grew up here in the Park Cities, and Rudy and I married, and I moved to Nashville because back then they were on the road like 250 days a year. And I really never thought that I'd get him to move to Dallas, and if I did, I thought like a Preston Hollow, like larger lot would be like the only thing I'd consider.
Ranch style, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because he lived on a 290 acre farm when we married, and then all of a sudden we got married, and he was on the road 250 days a year, and I'm in the middle of this farm, which was like being in the middle of Plano, by the way, you know, and thinking, what have I done? You know? Yeah. So, but then we spent some time in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, because they built one of those theaters there, like they have in Branson, and it was only Alabama and us at the time, so it was great because it hadn't been like overbuilt like Branson ended up. And we decided they didn't do very well being tethered to one place, you know, after being on the road for so much of their careers. And he just said one day, he goes, you know, let's just move back to Dallas. I can get anywhere from DFW. And I was like, okay. And he goes, you know, the next morning, I'll never forget, he said, I always thought you'd be on a plane before I could finish that sentence if I ever told you we were moving home. And I said, I always told you don't ever try to move me home and move me out again. You know, if we're going home, we're going home. And he said, I mean it, we're going home. And I was on a plane that afternoon. And my mother's a real estate broker, so she picked me up at the airport, and we were looking in the Park Cities because the kids were school age. And, you know, growing up there, I was like, oh, that's so-and-so's house. That's got bad juju. Let's not look at that one. You know, we'd have to bless that lot before we could build. You know? And that's how we ended up back here. Very cool. And now both my kids are grown, and Mommy's doing her thing finally. So.
How old were they when you moved back?
Lauren was 2, and Austin was in the 2nd grade.
So they really grew up in that area then.
Yeah.
I have an Austin too. My son's name is Austin. Yes.
I love it.
Very fun. Well, okay, so let's just ask an elephant in the room question. What was it like to be married to Rudy Gatlin?
You know what? It was a ton of fun. I mean, it would have been a ton of fun even if he hadn't been Rudy Gatlin. You know what I'm saying? He was a great guy, you know, and great father, all that. But just the fact that, you know, me and my kids had to do without a lot of stuff as far as having Dad around because of his schedule. But they got to make up or have it made up to them by doing like really fun celebrity events and getting to meet people they would normally never get to meet, going to the White House, going to Camp David. I mean, doing things that normal people don't really get to do. So it didn't bother you so much when you looked at what your payoff was if you just, you know, did what you needed to do while he was gone.
You said they got to go to Camp David. What was that like?
It was cool.
I can't imagine.
Yeah, I didn't like get impressed real easy just from all the stuff that we got to do, but that was really cool. Yeah, so yeah, it was a ton of fun. Yeah, it was when 41 was in office.
Very cool.
Really nice. Yeah. Really nice. So, what year did you write the book Good Christian Bitches? When did it come out?
2006.
Okay. So tell us a little bit about what was life like before the book and then after the book. How did it change?
You know, it's so funny because people tell you that if you do something like that, that your life will be forever changed, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse, you know? And I guess I didn't really believe it because, you know, I was kind of doing that for me. You know, I was kind of venting. And but I thought I could be funny about it and then make everybody kind of look at something we all need to look at anyway. Right. And I've told people my whole life, you can say anything to anybody pretty much as long as you're funny about it. You can get away with it. And I knew that locally it would probably do well because people could relate to it. I didn't really expect for it to do what it did on a national level, but that just tells you how relatable it was, to people all over the country.
Yeah, and for people who don't know what your book is about, why don't you tell about that? Talk about that a little bit.
It's really funny because the whole reason I wrote it is because when Rudy and I were going through our divorce, we were both very careful. I didn't want people thinking poorly of my children's father. They didn't want people thinking poorly of their mother. So there was no blood on the sidewalk. I mean, we just weren't talking ugly about each other. We knew that we're still going to be together for a lifetime in one way or another, having children together, and it was just real important to us to just not go there. And it's like people couldn't stand it. It's like since there was no information to be had, they were going to assume, and then the assumptions became fact. So basically, they just made it up, and it was almost like sometimes I think they were like provoking us to try to get us to set the record straight. No, that's not what happened. This is what happened. But you know what? It was none of their business, so we weren't going to do that. And he was gone so much, and because he hadn't grown up there, I grew up in the Park Cities, so he hadn't grown up there, and so he was a whole lot less affected by it. Plus, I don't know why we're like this, but people are so much harder on the women in a divorce situation than they are the men. I've never understood that. I mean, hopefully one day we'll evolve and it won't be that way anymore. But the whole thing was so crazy, and my book started from a journal.
Really?
And I was journaling, and all of a sudden I started laughing one day, and I was like, this is all so ridiculous. If I get run over by a bus, some people in this town would be really embarrassed. I need to change their names. And I went, I could change their names and write a novel. So I did. Yeah.
That's funny.
Isn't that funny?
That's amazing. Very cool. And go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so then it gets picked up by
it was
station,
crazy.
Right?
I had a lot of PR people reach out to me over the years wanting to talk to Rudy or his brothers or all of them. And then my cousin is an actress also. Angie Harmon is my cousin.
Oh, so really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'd have local media people reach out to me all the time trying to contact them for one reason or another. And my rule was always, if I don't pass this information along, I've basically said no for you, which isn't my place. So I'm always going to pass it on. You do with it what you want to. But I was always very nice to those people because, all they were doing was trying to get in touch with somebody. That's their job. And it really paid off because then when my book came out, a lot of people wrote about my book that I don't think would have normally written about it. And one girl was a freelance writer for Newsweek, and it turned out the editor of Newsweek at the time, I don't know if he's still there or not, but he had grown up in Highland Park, and so she put me in Periscope, which is like page 4, it's like a Q&A because they don't do book reviews. And the next thing I knew, it was that kind of commemorative issue that had Obama on the cover of it the week before his first term election, and my phone just started blowing up from the West Coast. It was crazy. I mean, I met with the 2.5 Men people, I met with the Ugly Betty people, the Office people, and they couldn't have been nicer, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. And I would literally stand on the other side of their door before I walked in their office for a meeting, and I think, okay, God, they can't eat me, and I might learn something. And I just, walk in the door and just hear what they had to say, and there were always like 10 of them and one of me.
So going back to Angie Harmon, I think my husband's had a crush on her for a long time.
I think all men, all heterosexual, even gay men, it's both, all men have had a crush on her since I don't know when, but she's very crushable, and more important than anything, she's precious on the inside too, so that's a bonus.
That's awesome. So reading through the book and the first couple of chapters, I'm like, I feel like this is a real story here. I kept thinking that, and then the story just got more and more interesting. I know the part about Ann Richards was true, but what else in the book was actually true?
I think if you're from around here, you can probably, honestly, it's been like 10 years since I've read it. There was a lot of stuff in there that was true, and a lot of things, things were changed to protect the not so innocent, but I felt like if I got too literal with things that, I wasn't any better if I was handing people their head, so that wasn't my point, And I had to use a ghostwriter because I had to separate myself from it enough, and I even had him name all the characters in the book. Because
without
I didn't
him knowing the background of everything, right?
Because I didn't want to bring any prejudice to it, and it worked out really well. But there were funny things that you don't realize, or people don't realize, that you can kind of talk to your friends, because they'll get things that other people won't get. Like there was a unspeakable place on Harry Hines, if you catch my drift, that in high school some of the bad boys would sneak out to, and it was called Gino's. So I made a restaurant that they frequent. I called it Gino's, and my phone blew up. They were going, "Oh my God, I can't believe you put Gino's in your book." You know, just little things like that. So it was a lot of fun. Yeah,
that is fun.
So you said earlier that your mother, it was in real estate. Did you ever?
My mother is still a broker.
Still a broker.
She is
Did you
still active in real estate.
ever consider going that direction?
You know, it's funny. I got my real estate license in 1980, and I still have it.
Wow.
And I worked for her until Rudy and I married, which it was great because working for my mom, you know, when he said, "Can you come do this event with me or whatever," I always could, you know, without having to worry about the backlash, because mom was crazy about Rudy, and you know, it was very, very encouraging in that relationship. But you know, it's funny. I never loved the business only because I think people are so ill-mannered. I mean, they really are, and y'all have got a very special temperament, because I told my mother, I said, I'd be in prison if I tried to sell real estate.
We don't want you in prison.
It's you know, the people that you know spend your weekends away from your family and out showing them property, and the one Sunday afternoon that your daughter has a dance recital at McFarland for 3 hours, you know, they go to an open house and write a contract with the person who was sitting on the listing, and you're like, what? So even though I keep it just for my own, you know, and I say all the time that I keep my license so my friends and family can take advantage of me, you know. So, but it's just not something that I was dying to get up and go do every day.
Yeah.
You know?
You know what struck me most in reading through your book? It was how generous the men were in the book. So, are they really that extravagant?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of them are. Yeah, you'd be amazed. I mean,
now everybody's gonna have to read the book to see what we're
I'm going to have to
talking
work
about.
on that. Well, mister.
I was going to say, I'm like, I think you have a special skill set, you know. But they literally, a friend of mine said the other day, and they're incredibly wealthy and listed on all the, you know, lists that they, And he said, you know, he goes, I finally figured out one day that she can't spend as much money in one day as I make, so who cares? And I was like, golly, you know, if she ever, you know, gets run over by a bus or something, I'm going to go sit on his porch.
What was it the mother in the book said? Always, never give up on a provider?
That's right, yeah. Not that I subscribe to that theory, believe me. I don't think that's such a great idea, but I think a lot of women do that, you know, because I would be so confused. It's like everybody in town knows that your husband's a cheater, and you're bound to know, yet you walk around acting like nothing's happening, you know? And, you know, then years later when he gets old and slows down, and I guess it kind of worked out for him, you know, but some people, I guess, are still that old school in their thought process, you know.
Exactly.
So,
Well,
and my husband wasn't a cheater, just for the record.
Oh, for the record. I saw lots of different themes within the book. So there was about gossip and the effect of that, and there was about a divorced woman kind of re-entering her society and what she used to be in. There was a theme about your relationship with your mother. There's all these different things. What do you think speaks the most to women who have read the book that have said, I really identify with this? Is there any?
I think it's the gossip thing.
The gossip
I mean, there's
part.
not any, I hate to say this because it's a real indictment to all of us. I mean, I don't know anybody who's not ever gossiped. I mean, I don't care how pure intentions, you know, pure their intentions are, pure their heart is. Yeah. I mean, at some point, you just can't help but repeat something that you heard to somebody, even if it's your best friend that you know would never go, well, so-and-so told me, you know. But I think, especially nowadays, there's so many people, and they don't even realize it, some of them, you know, bless their hearts, that a lot of them get their value from being the first with the information. And, you know, I don't know what it is about women, but, you know, we should be the world's best at lifting each other up and encouraging each other and supporting each other. And it's like, whenever one of them sometimes is down, rather than doing that, the first instinct seems to be just to kick them, you know, and I've never really understood that. So I've chosen my female friends very carefully.
Yeah, that's important.
And I've taught my daughter to do the same, you know, because, and, you know, my poor mother, I've told people in other interviews that, you know, she's 70, well, she's in her 70s.
That's all you have to say.
Yeah, she's drop dead gorgeous, she didn't look at, believe me. But she had this core group of women friends that she pretty much put together, right, you know, for the last 40 years. And a few of them decided that they were in my book, which they weren't. I mean, you know, the age group that I was talking about was my own age group, not hers. And they're not friends anymore. Wow. You know, so like Mean Girls, you know, by the time they're 70, they're Pro Series experts. You know? So,
lots of practice.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't. If that's who they are, and they don't really acknowledge it and recognize it and work on trying not to be that way, then nothing changes.
Now, did some of the characters in your book, did some people relate so much to that they thought they were the characters in the book?
That's the problem. And
Okay.
I kept saying, why would you want to be her? She's horrible.
I guess if you can self-identify, then maybe you need to look at yourself and figure out why do I feel this way?
Yeah, why is she speaking to me? It's like, well, and what's so funny is, in that social world, the people that I referred to in the book, they were either so far on the outskirts of all that. I used to say they weren't even on the fallout map. They thought they were in it, but you know how that is. And what was funny is the people that might have thought twice about, should I look at myself and see if that could be me? It went right over their head. They had no clue.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, church was a theme throughout the book too. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, I was raised in a Christian home. I raised my family in a Christian home. And it was funny because I was kind of traumatized. My daughter's a young life leader.
I used to be a young life leader.
Oh, did you?
I loved it.
She just spoke at the men's breakfast, a month ago or whatever. And it was her second time to do that. And she loves it. The young man that she sees, she met when they were both leaders at Young Life Camp. And we were crazy about him. He's a doll. He's here this summer doing an internship with FC Dallas. But when she was like a junior in high school and decided that's when she became a Christian, Rudy and I were kind of like... But I loved it that she went after that on her own, and she wanted to claim it and identify it and, just... go for it herself, because like I knew a ton of people that if their parents took them to church when they were kids, then they didn't want anything to do with organized religion when they were older, and we all knew that lady who the meanest people we ever met, we met at church, and one of the people who was particularly real gamey, this one particular woman had never married, never had children, but she was from a really wealthy family, and she had a lot of spare time on her hands, and it was funny because her big claim to fame is that she's, this dyed-in-the-wool, just devoted, devout Christian woman. And I'm like, how's that work? So and what happened, the conversation, the title came from, I was talking to a girlfriend of mine one day on the phone, and she said, God, I'm really floored by the behavior of some of these good Christian women. And I go, you mean good Christian bitches? And we both just died laughing. I was like, I'm going to write a book and call it Good Christian Bitches. So that I had to, because I didn't want to be one of those people that said I was going to write a book and didn't,
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I saw in the book where that evolved and how it came to be with the people that were talking, and the Sunday school or the women's group, I guess, was where you go to the Bible study to set the record straight on the gossip.
Oh no, to make prayer requests.
Yes, not disguised as prayer.
So you can be the first with the information.
Yeah, that's amazing. So fun.
That's a lot of fun.
So along this journey, is there anything that you would have changed or done differently that if you could go back and do it all again?
Yes. One particular person that I knew was trying to cause trouble for my mother in those relationships that I described, I told my mother, I said, I can see this coming. I said, you need to have a conversation with her and tell her what's motivating this person and what's driving this. And, head her off the path, basically. And mother was like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I'm not going to do that, Okay. And sure enough, it was when the D Magazine article came out where the little parlor game was being played and they thought who was who. This person took a copy of the magazine the night before to this woman's house before the issue was released. Wow. Yeah, and made sure that she understood that was her. Well, I mean, in the first place, yeah. I mean, who wouldn't want Kristen Chenoweth to be them? You know what I'm saying? But she was also about 30 years past the date that it would have been an option.
Oh, that's funny.
So, but like I said, I mean, the thing that just amused me and puzzled me more than anything was the people who they were determined to make something about them that had nothing to do with them, And I was like, and funny things happened. Like this one lady was like, I can't believe you put my daughter in that book. Well, everybody in town knew that her daughter had been arrested for shoplifting at Neiman's, but she didn't know. And she goes, that wasn't about your daughter. That was about Kim's housekeeper stealing a gift card that she had out of her wallet and then going to use it at Neiman's. And the salesperson at Gucci was like, I know Kim Gatlin, seen Kim Gatlin, called security. She got arrested. My housekeeper had to admit to selling it to this lady. And all of a sudden that other mom was like, what do you mean she got arrested?
Oh my gosh.
And it was like, she was like, what are you talking about? She's like, what are you talking about?
Oh, I didn't know.
What do you know?
I mean, it was crazy. You know.
So let me ask you this. I mean, you wrote the book back in 2006. What are some other things you've been doing since you wrote the book?
Well, this is what's so crazy. I mean, I don't know if y'all heard this or not, but the show went to ABC and then was canceled after 10 episodes. And then back then we didn't have, Netflix or Amazon Video or any of that, the other options we have now. So at one point it was going to be a musical, and actually
that would have been a fun musical.
Can you believe it? I know that a hoot. And Kid Craddock was the one that was interested in doing it. I mean, he was all on board. He was going to put up all the money for it, and I didn't know this, but he had a huge catalog of Broadway show tunes, which I would have thought if he owned a publishing catalog, it would have been like pop music in it. Right. But he was a big Broadway fan. His daughter Caroline's very talented, and he, of course, that she was going to be involved, but. Then when he passed away, about the time that he passed away, somebody called me and said, it was actually Jennifer Aspen who played Sharon on the show. And she said that the girls had been talking and that they were discussing how when we got canceled, we didn't have all the options we do now, and would I be interested in looking at, doing it again. And I was like, are you kidding me? I mean, it's not like you're out of work actresses and the only chance you have to work is if this comes back, so I can die now, because they had such an affinity for my girls, so I loved it. And we talked to Aaron Kaplan, and then he talked to the people at CW, and so now it's coming back to the CW, but they're going to cast it younger just because that's who their audience is. And hopefully the girls can stay involved as like neighbors or bosses or moms
Parents,
or aunts or something. So but so that's what's happening. Well, in the meantime, I'd written Good Christian Bastards, the boy version. And I've got another book coming out in September, and it's called Bubble Wrap, and it's RAP. Because it's like, the shorthand you need to know to live in the bubble successfully,
Oh, I bet that's an interesting read.
It's hilarious. And what's really funny is I was going to do it anonymously so I could be really frank about some subjects. And a friend of mine was like, yeah, I don't know who you think you're kidding. This is in primary colors. It's so obvious this is you, And I was like, so I wasn't going to do it. And then I was on this other friend of mine's show, and she and her girlfriend were talking about doing like an official preppy handbook for the Park Cities, and I was like, okay, well then I might as well go ahead and tell you I've already done it, and I just hadn't released it yet because I felt funny about putting my name on it, because I was so frank. And so now I've got my name on it, and I've had to go back and practically rewrite the whole thing and tone down some of the stuff I said. But how many ways can you say, please don't put a trampoline in your front yard? You're already qualified for the mortgage. It's too late. You already live here, but please don't do that.
Exactly. Just some general rules. Exactly.
Right.
That's too
that
funny.
you wouldn't think you'd have to explain.
So what's next after you finish with this book? Is it done? Is it coming out?
Yeah, it's done. It's coming out in September. Yeah, and then the show's supposed to be in 2020.
Okay,
so
I was wondering when that was going to start. Like beginning, first quarter? Oh,
fall 2020.
Fall
Okay.
2020.
Yeah.
Great.
And so I'm just staying busy with that.
Will you do some guest appearances?
Oh no.
No?
No, I'm not. I'm not at that side of the camera, girl. No, doesn't interest me at all.
That's hilarious. Well, is there anything that you wish we had asked you today that we haven't asked you?
I can't think of anything. Y'all did your homework. I'm impressed.
Well, is there anything that you learned from writing these books that made you go,
Yeah. Everybody is the center of their own universe. When people tell you that and you think, oh, people aren't like that, most people really are. And that a lot of people think that reflection is better left to mirrors. It's like,
do you feel like your book has changed people's perceptions of themselves?
The best thing that happened with my book is I got messages, videos, I got all kinds of communication from people all over the world. There was this one little 15-year-old girl in Australia that sent me a video just saying that, she just wanted me to know that this was the first time she'd been back to church since she was a child, because she realized that she had been mad at God and she should have been mad at these people who weren't being great ambassadors for God. And I was like, and I can't tell you how much I heard that. And if nothing else came out of it, that really warmed my heart, because that's part of why I wrote it, because I was mad at God, and I felt like, why are you protecting this, but because that's what it felt like, and I think we all forget that everybody's got free will, not just us.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Kim, we're so glad you joined us on the show today. It's been great having you. I love hearing your story. I can't wait to hear more off camera.
I know.
Next month, we're going to have Susan Spindler, and she is a community leader in Collin County. She also is an event planner, and she's an interior decorator. And she's going to give us lots of advice on how we can do better with our events and fun things, especially over the summer. She's going to be presenting some summer things.
Yeah,
so
she's a
look
lot of
forward to
fun.
that. Yes.
It's a lot of fun, so you want to make sure and tune in on the third Tuesday.
Third Tuesday every month from 11 to 11:30 on Facebook. So thank you for joining us again. I want to thank Craig Schrank with Willow Bend Mortgage. We're so appreciative of you, and we look forward to catching you next month. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you for joining us on North Texas Networkers.
Visit our website, mariposagroupdfw.com. That's MARIPOSA Group DFW.com for more information about the show and other resources. I'm Caralee.
And I'm Stacy.
And we are your real estate professionals.